the suspected 9/11 mastermind, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. He comes clean, including his part in the death of Wall Street Journal reporter Daniel Pearl. That's the headline this morning. The war of words between Rosie O'Donnell and Donald Trump kicks into high gear again. We're going to tell you why Rosie's flipping out over Donald's latest remarks. Hair flipping out. And Idol cast off Brandon Rogers on his unforgettable turn on the big stage. All that and the leg shaking on this Thursday edition of Fox and Friends.
I'm growing patient for a love to call my own.
Live from our world headquarters in the heart of Midtown Manhattan, this is Fox and Friends for a Thursday, and joining us live here in the Concrete Canyon, the skyscrapers, we've got Ollie North with us today. Ollie, it's great to have you.
With you, brother.
Listen, today's big headline is, it was revealed Fox News has learned within the last half hour that Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, we'd been talking about his rather lengthy confession down at Gitmo. Now it turns out he personally says that he beheaded Wall Street Journal correspondent Daniel Pearl.
Also very important in this, he acknowledges planning for a number of other operations that did not succeed. Here's the good news in all of this. One, he's admitted that they planned operations against former President Bill Clinton, former President Carter, the Pope, a dozen other operations that failed.
Sears Tower.
All of these things failed. Now, he's certainly involved in 9/11 and the first attack here on the World Trade Center in '93, but the fact is, this guy has been thwarted a number of times.
Is he the one-man plotting machine? Because has there been a major attack or a plot thwarted outside what's happening in London since that time?
It may well be that he is also claiming responsibility for things in which he might have been peripherally involved, because he was supposedly the public affairs officer for Al-Qaeda.
And it shows he's in Pakistan. We found him in Pakistan, and Danny Pearl was
murdered in
beheaded.
Pakistan.
Ollie, you know what? Maybe he's taking, he may have had a hand in that terror manual that they used as a guidebook, because he had a hand in producing that. Maybe that's why he feels like, okay, sure, I was instrumental in the '93 and 2001 World Trade Center bombing. Also, I had a hand in Richard Reed's shoe bomb. But then other things in the manual, like trying to assassinate the Pope, Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, Henry Kissinger, stuff like that. It's in the book, so maybe by extension, that's how he's taking credit.
But also a number of other things that he tried to be involved in to carry out attacks that failed. And the good news in this is what this guy is acknowledging is we in the West, in the United States in particular, are thwarting his terrorist design.
All right, so since he's confessing to everything under the sun, could he also tell us where Osama bin Laden is? Well,
he probably knows where Osama bin Laden was. I mean, and undoubtedly, if he's confessed to all of this, as you notice, in some of that confession, there were redacted elements that ultimately they promised to make public.
And they talk about financier. If you're a financier and you're not independently wealthy like he was, and he knows who was funding him. Well, and a lot of those people are living amongst us.
And of course, thanks to the New York Times and the Washington Compost, how we were tracking those finances is now publicly known to the bad guys.
Now, the reason we know all about this is 26 pages were released last night. Apparently, there was a weekend hearing to figure out whether or not he was indeed an enemy combatant and was entitled to a war crimes trial as opposed to a tribunal.
Right. Properly detained. And what this guy is, of course, is one of the masterminds behind the deadliest terrorist attack that's ever been perpetrated. The one right here in New York, a farmer's field in Pennsylvania, and the Pentagon in Washington.
Well, Sheikh Omar is in jail for the murder of Danny Pearl. Is this Khalid Sheikh Mohammed's way? Because he's already shown concern for his fellow prisoners in Gitmo. Is that his way of trying to exonerate those who are in jail for that murder?
But my understanding of what he has acknowledged is his role in planning it and the execution of Danny Pearl, not necessarily being the guy who, instead of Omar, is the guy who holds the knife.
Okay, very interesting. All right, we're going to discuss this and much more in the next hour here on Fox and Friends. In the meantime, I want to give you the other headlines for this Thursday. 2 volunteer police officers are among the dead after a wild shootout here in New York City's Greenwich Village neighborhood overnight. The officers, who were not armed, were pursuing a man who fatally shot a pizza shop worker 15 times in the back. The gunman was later shot and killed by regular police officers. An assistant principal in Newberry, North Carolina, and his teacher wife are accused of selling beer to students at a party. Police say John and Mary Clark threw the party for their son. They were arrested yesterday. Some of their son's classmates say the couple should have known better. Some House Democrats predict they'll be able to pass a bill calling for U.S. troops to pull out of Iraq, but debate has stalled now in the Senate. The Senate proposal, seen as most likely to pass, is a compromise Virginia's Republican Senator John Warner is expected to offer. It will call for Iraq to take steps towards independence, but stop short of calling for withdrawal. And actress Angelina Jolie and her newly adopted Vietnamese son could be home by this weekend. Jolie completed the Vietnamese paperwork today in Ho Chi Minh City and will do the U.S. paperwork in Hanoi. She has adopted children in Cambodia and Ethiopia and has one naturally, of course, with boyfriend Brad Pitt. The interesting part of this story is that she had to file for this adoption in Vietnam as a single parent under the name Jolie because Vietnamese law does not allow you to adopt with a man and a woman if you are not legally married.
That's exactly right. And just one other thing about, you were talking about the two